In improved second-generation guise, Vauxhall's little Meriva people carrier is smarter and more efficient, with the option of impressive 1.6-litre diesel power at the top of the range. Its primary selling points, though, remain much as before. So the clever FlexDoor arrangement that'll make life a bit easier for parents on the go remains. Plus you get a range of neat interior flexibility touches that should also make quite a difference in day-to-day living. Overall, it's a people-friendly choice that could be perfect for small families. Family cars ought to be designed for families like mine. Here's a car we reckon we could very easily live with. Vauxhall's much improved second generation Meriva compact MPV. I sometimes wonder if many of those responsible for creating some of today's bestsellers have been anywhere near a family like ours. Whenever we go anywhere, getting in the car is the final stage in a lengthy process of organising snacks and bags, dogs and child seats. It's about kids fighting to get in and arguing over the best space or who's going to sit in the front. It's a hassle, and we need a compact, affordable car to make it easier. A car perhaps like this improved Meriva. The first version of this Vauxhall, launched in 2003, was a Super Mini MPV, the very smallest kind. And though it tried its best to be versatile, ultimate lack of size told against it for many. This one's a bit bigger, not scenic or C-Max sized, but large enough to create a viable, more flexible alternative to that Astra or Focus-sized family hatchback you might have been thinking about. There are only 5 seats, of course, it isn't that big, but the space you do get is very cleverly used and impressively accessible, thanks to this novelty, the FlexDoors. They certainly make getting in and out a lot easier, but Vauxhall wants to remind us that this car scores on more than just its doors. To emphasise the point, they introduced a substantially updated version of this second-generation model in the spring of 2014, with smarter looks, extra equipment options and a more efficient Euro 6 engine range that included the segment's most impressive diesel option, a whisper-quiet 1.6-litre CDTI unit. This improved Meriva is the car we're going to look at here. Though unlike the original Meriva, this second generation version has never bothered with a manic VXR high performance model, the news that virtually every variant in this car's lineup features a turbocharger might lead you to expect more performance across the board than is actually on offer. In point of fact, the turbo approach in this case is less about speed and more about efficiency. And no variant in the lineup sums that approach up better than the one I'm trying here, the 1.6-litre CDTI. Vauxhall calls this its whisper diesel, and it's the major change with this improved lineup. Sure enough, refinement is far better than was provided by the rumbly old 1.7-litre power plant that sadly continues for those in search of automatic transmission, though to be fair, in refinement terms that's not saying very much. The whispering 1.6 is offered in 2 guises, the 110 PS version most will buy and the 136 PS model that I'm trying here. Having already tried this engine in Vauxhall's Astra and Zafira models, I was already aware of just how much of a step forward it represented for the brand. To be honest, I've always struggled to recommend the company's diesel models, but this one's different. Quiet and free of vibration and eager to pull from right down low in the rev range for effortless progress. The 110 PS variant isn't especially fleet. Expect to reach 62 miles an hour from rest in around 13 seconds en route to a top speed of just over 110 miles an hour. But this 136 PS version is quite as rapid as any car of this kind ever needs to be. Its useful 320 Newton meters of torque, improving that showing to 9.9 seconds and 122 miles an hour. All of which is all very well if your budget will stretch towards the top of the range. If it won't, and you want a diesel in this car, then you'll find yourself instead agonising between 75 or 95 PS versions of Vauxhall's trusty but ageing Euro 5 1.3 litre CDTI unit, the pokier variant being the one to have. That's not only because its rest to 62 mph figure of 13.8 seconds is over 3 seconds faster, but also because it comes with the full suite of the brand's EcoFlex efficiency tweaks. Most buyers, though, will probably end up behind the wheel of one of the more affordable 1.4 litre petrol-powered Merivas. The determinedly budget-conscious can have this unit in normally aspirated 100 PS guise, where 62 miles an hour is 14 seconds away en route to 110 miles an hour. Better, though, to haggle a bit harder and get this engine in the 120 PS turbocharged form most will choose. Here the stats improved to 11.3 seconds and 117 miles an hour, which isn't far off the 10.1 seconds and 122 mile an hour showing of the top 140 PS model. You won't be too bothered about how much can be gained by flinging this car around the bends, though the suspension tweaks made to this revised model have made it a little more responsive through the turns. For most potential buyers, a greater priority, though, will be the need to reduce journey sickness by keeping body roll in check. One reason for this Meriva's firm but comfortable ride, allowing for excellent chassis control around corners. Grip and steering feel are both excellent, the latter having been tuned specifically to the needs of British drivers. The 6-speed gearbox is notably slicker than before too. A pity, though, that Vauxhall hasn't been able to do anything about the lengthy 11.5 metre turning circle. As for refinement, well, it could be better at higher speeds, but when you're commuting or doing the school run, this Vauxhall should prove a comfortable companion. Vauxhall reckons it invented the smallest part of the compact MPV segment when the original first-generation version of this car was launched back in 2003. Prior to that point, if you wanted a really small people carrier on a budget, you pretty much had to have a converted van. The issue, though, was in the definition of the word small. Though General Motors, Opel and Vauxhall brands shifted over 1 million Mark I Merivas, sales were ultimately limited by the car's diminutive size. So this second generation version, first launched in 2010, is usefully bigger. Not quite scenic sized and certainly not large enough to take more than 5 people, but at 4.28 metres in length, needing pretty much the same size of garage required for a supposedly much larger Mark II Vauxhall Zafira MPV. For all that, this car's natural competitors are still Super Mini-based people carriers like Ford's B-Max, Fiat's 500L, and Nissan's second generation Note, all of which are more modern arrivals in this sector. Hence the need for the various updates which aim to keep this facelifted Mark II Meriva in segment contention. So there's a smarter front grille flanked by sleeker eagle-eye headlamps. Plus there's now the option of LED illumination for front daytime running lights and rear lamps, plus a bit of extra chrome adorning plusher variants like this one. Otherwise, this second generation design is little changed, with its wavy beltline and distinctive centre side window line kink, there to give younger folk a better view out in a bid to reduce the likelihood of travel sickness. The real innovation with this car, though, comes with its novel flex doors, of the kind used by landmark Vauxhalls from pre-war years like the 1923 3098 model or the 1934 Light 6 Saloon. Tug the front door handle and everything functions as normal. The rear door, though, is hinged on its rear edge and opens in the opposite direction in the manner of a Mini Clubman or a Mazda RX-8, except that crucially the rear doors on those cars can't be opened independently, a major family drawback. Here, thanks to the use of a central B-pillar, you can do just that, functionality matched only by a Rolls-Royce Phantom or Ghost. A self-locking device activates over 2 miles an hour, overcoming any safety objections. This layout doesn't, of course, help you when you're battling within the confines of a tight supermarket parking space, which is where the alternative sliding layout of a rival Ford B-Max scores. Where you do feel the benefit of the FlexDoor design though, is when entering and exiting the car under more normal circumstances, as the doors open to an angle of almost 90 degrees and you can step straight out unhindered. When both doors are open, the wardrobe door layout creates a natural parent-friendly zone for the corralling of children when they're near to the car. It also helps parents when they're strapping the kids in or fitting child seats, because there's no door in the way to maneuver around. Once you're installed in the back, you'll find that space for 3 people would be as tight as you'd expect it would be in this class of car, though 3 kids will be quite happy. The seats slide backwards and forwards, as they always have done on Merivas, allowing you to prioritise either legroom or luggage space. In their rearmost position, they get even cleverer. You can fold down the narrower centre seat and slide the 2 outer ones closer in to each other, creating a car with so much shoulder room that you have to stretch a bit to get to the 1 litre bottle holders in the doors. There's also fold-out tables on top versions. And luggage space? Well, lift the tailgate and there's 397 litres on offer, assuming you take advantage of the way that the removable boot floor can be lowered for taller loads. Nice touches include storage compartments in the cargo sidewalls, these shopping bag hooks, and the way that the parcel shelf can be slid forward into these slots so that you can keep it well out of the way when you don't need it. Families will also want to consider the clever optional FlexFix integrated rear cycle carrier that slides out from beneath the rear bumper and can take a couple of bikes. But let's say you don't need the rear parcel shelf, but you do need to transport 2 folk in the back, yet with extra luggage space. Well, folding down this centre section might help if the loads are longer items. If they're bulkier things, then simply pushing forward these rear seats might do the trick. Ultimately though, you may have to fold them forward. That will free up 916 litres of space up to window level, or 1,496 litres if you load up to the roof. Now that's about the same as a rival Citroën C3 Picasso will offer, but it's better than anything else you'll get in this class outside of a converted van. At the wheel, the driving position's surprisingly commanding, and the large glass area makes everything feel airy and spacious, particularly if you've gone for a top model like this one, fitted with this huge panoramic glass sunroof. You don't get the kind of integrated touchscreen dashboard that you'd find in, say, the brand's larger Insignia and Zafira Tourer models, but much of the same IntelliLink infotainment technology can now be ordered as an option. Storage is obviously key on a car like this, and cubbies and trays abound, with plusher models getting a storage box under the driver's seat, door pockets able to swallow a 1.5 litre bottle of drink, and dedicated spots for bottles, tissues, sunglasses and MP3 players. There's also a large glove box with a space-saving pocket for the owner's manual, as well as built-in coin and pen holders, and a mini glove box on the driver's side that's big enough to hold a wallet, a mobile phone and other items. Most interesting though is the way that installing an automatic electric parking brake has freed up space for this FlexTrail modular storage system between the front seats, various aspects of which are either standard or optional depending on the trim level you choose. Get all the aspects as here, and you get yourself a modular, highly adaptable 3-tier storage system. 2 longitudinal rails, smartly crafted in polished aluminium, have tracks in their inner face. The top track carries a flip-top armrest storage module big enough to carry CDs, while the lower track carries a storage tray with a cup holder. Now, for convenience, both units slide to any position along the tracks, and the armrest module can overlap the tray. Either or both can easily be removed as required using a simple push button if you want to put in a handbag or something. Below the FlexRail, the fixed floor level tray that even basic Meriva variants get has cup holders, storage areas, and USB and aux in points, plus a 12-volt socket. There's even ambient lighting provided between the rails for easier use at night. Neat. List pricing suggests that you'll be paying somewhere between £13,000 and £22,000 for your Meriva, depending on the version you choose. Now that's a little misleading, as in fact virtually the entire range is priced at over the £16,500 mark. Just a single loss-leading, basically spec'd Expression variant lies at the foot of the range. That car has the least powerful 100 PS 1.4 litre petrol engine, and potential Meriva buyers will need to think in terms of petrol power unless they have quite a healthy budget. Diesel variants, after all, don't kick into the lineup until you reach around the £18,000 price point, so you're going to need to make sure you really can justify the lower running costs of black pump motoring. Inevitably, the most desirable engine in this revised lineup, the 1.6 litre CDTI diesel that I've been trying here, is positioned near the top of the range, with a budget near on £20,000 required once you've allowed for a few well-chosen extras. So what kind of value proposition does that represent? Well, if you're to get a like-for-like comparison in determining that, you'll need to be comparing apples with apples, or to put that into this context, limit yourself to the consideration of compact MPVs based on super minis, like a Citroën C3 Picasso, rather than those based on family hatchbacks, like a scenic-sized Citroën C4 Picasso. Want to know what the difference is? Well, think in terms of cars in the larger segment offering about 30% more space at 30% higher prices, and you won't be too far off the mark. Vauxhall themselves rather muddied the waters in this regard at the original launch of this second generation model in 2010 by trying to justify higher pricing by rather hopefully suggesting this Meriva to have graduated into the larger segment. The market quite rightly told them otherwise. So let's look at what it's really up against. Almost every model range in this segment starts off with a price-leading base petrol variant at around the £13,000 price point, then, like Vauxhall, forces you to dig a lot deeper in your purse or wallet for the next model up. Perhaps the most obvious competitor is the other car in this class that also does clever things with doors, albeit with sliding ones, Ford's B-Max. The Ford costs about the same as this Vauxhall in entry-level petrol form, but further up the range can save you between £1,000 and £1,500 or so in model-for-model comparisons, depending on the version that you're looking at. But it's a slightly more compact car. Its boot is around 20% smaller, a problem that also afflicts the rival Nissan Note, unless you push its sliding rear bench forward, crushing the knees of rear folk against the backs of those sat up in front. The Meriva's cabin is more practically usable too. I should also point out that if you opt for either the Ford or the Nissan, you'll search in vain for a powerful diesel derivative with more than 100 PS to match the 1.6 litre CDTI Meriva variant I've been trying here. That could well be an issue if you want a car of this kind to be also viable for longer trips. You can't get a really pokey diesel option in a rival Citroën C3 Picasso either, though this French contender, which in size terms is an almost identical match for this Vauxhall, compensates with more affordably priced, feebler diesel engine derivatives. In fact, the only other car in this class that can offer you a decently sized diesel is Fiat's quirky 500L, which has a 120 brake horsepower 1.6 litre multi-jet variant at the top of its range. Otherwise, think of this Italian option as being about 10% cheaper, about 10% smaller, and about 10% less well screwed together than this Vauxhall, and you'll pretty much have summed it up. Are there any other direct alternatives to this car? The South Korean contingent might be worth looking at, namely the single design we know either as a Kia Venga or a Hyundai iX20. This is certainly a cheaper way into a diesel version of a car of this kind, but again there's no really pokey black pump option, And here you won't get the practical flexibility of a Meriva or stuff like the clever infotainment options. Beyond that, the only real alternative to what's on offer here are converted small vans. Skoda's Roomster wears a very good disguise in this regard, but that's essentially what it is. Vehicles like Citroen's Berlingo Multispace, Peugeot's Partner Tipi and Ford's Tornio Connect are much more obviously LCV. On the plus side, all will probably save you a little over this car, and all have square boxy shapes that offer more carriage capacity. Downsides include more ponderous handling, greater body roll, less interior sophistication and a more commercial feel. It really comes down to what you want. And if, having considered all the alternatives, what you want is a Meriva, you'll be wanting to know what's included in terms of standard equipment. Don't be too misled by the rather basic tally applied to the price-leading expression-trimmed version, though even that car does get power windows and mirrors, a height-adjustable driver's seat, the FlexFloor luggage compartment, the FlexSpace flexible rear seats, a decent quality stereo with an aux-in socket, and HSA Hill Start Assist to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions. Most models, though, get much more than that. So whether you go for 1.4 litre petrol or 1.3 or 1.6 litre diesel power, you can usually expect to find features like air conditioning, cruise control, Bluetooth and the FlexRail centre console system with its sliding tray and cup holder. You have to stretch right up to this top SE model, though, for the sliding storage box and armrest that goes with it. At this level, there are also niceties like 17-inch alloy wheels, front fog lights, front under-seat stowage, seatback tables for those in the rear, and a huge panoramic glass roof. Options include automatic transmission, larger 18-inch alloy wheels, LED illumination for front daytime running lights and rear lamps, heated seats, a heated steering wheel, and the AFS adaptive forward lighting system that turns with the bends. I'd also want to look at the clever FlexFix integrated bike carrier and the two satellite navigation systems, badged Navi 650 and Navi 950. Now go for the 950 and you get Vauxhall's new generation IntelliLink infotainment system included, which allows seamless smartphone integration with the car with voice control. Key also for me, as someone who suffers from back problems, would be the optional ergonomic front sports seats, which have been given the much coveted seal of approval from the independent German doctors and experts who run the Action for Healthy Backs organisation. Now that feature alone would sell me this car. No other model in this segment has earned this certification. Safety-wise, well, it's a pity that the base model does without side airbags, and you don't even get curtain airbags or anti-whiplash front seat head restraints until you progress well up the trim hierarchy. Still, you do get ISOFIX child seat fastenings, and at least the usual electronic aids are present and correct, including ESP stability control and ABS, with EBD, electronic brake force distribution, to maximise its effectiveness, plus a BAS brake assist system to help in emergency stops. There's an SLS straight line stability control that, like CBC cornering brake control, helps when you're travelling under split friction road conditions. Say when you're pulling off or rounding a corner and one side of the car is travelling over wet leaves, for example. There's also EDC engine drag torque control that stops the car becoming unstable due to the braking effect of the engine if you suddenly lift off the throttle or engage too low a gear on a slippery road. Most of this improved Meriva model's engines comply with Euro 6 emission standards and feature turbocharged induction, and as a result can promise strong fuel economy. You'd expect the least powerful diesel variant to be the most frugal choice, in which case you'd be wrong. To be fair, the feeblest 75 PS 1.3 litre CDTI unit doesn't do too badly, managing 60.1 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 124 grams per kilometre of CO2, figures that improve to 68.9 miles to the gallon and 109 grams per kilometre if you order this power plant in EcoFlex 95 PS form, with a stop-start system that cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. Even so, however you spec it, the ageing diesel 1.3 is easily outshone by the 110 PS version of the newer 1.6 litre CDTI engine, from which around 70 miles to the gallon ought to be possible, plus a CO2 return close to the 100 grams per kilometre mark. Even if you order this unit, as here, in pokier 136 PS guise, you can still expect 64.2 miles to the gallon and 116 grams per kilometre. Overall, really the only way you can go wrong when it comes to running costs with a diesel Meriva is to opt for an automatic version with the old 1.7 litre CDTI unit fitted. This manages just 46.3 miles to the gallon and a smoky 160 grams per kilometre of CO2. Enough said. As I mentioned earlier on in this film, diesel choices in this Vauxhall's lineup can prove quite pricey. So it would be reasonable to want to know whether there really is that much of a running cost difference in going instead for a variant fueled from the green pump. Well, let's see. The entry-level 1.4 litre 16-valve 100 PS version manages 47.1 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 140 grams per kilometre of CO2, which is pretty much up to class standards and about 5% better than you get from a directly comparable entry-level Citroën C3 Picasso or Fiat 500L. The Meriva's 1.4 turbo 120 PS engine shades that of its Citroën competitor too, but it can't match the sophisticated efficiency of the EcoBoost, Twin Air or supercharged technology you'll find respectively in directly comparable Ford, Fiat or Nissan offerings at this level in this segment. For the sake of completeness, I'll also tell you that the rare 1.4 16-valve 140 PS petrol variant manages 44.8 miles to the gallon and 149 grams per kilometre. What else? Well, like other Vauxhalls, this one comes with a lifetime warranty. It's valid for the life of the car or up to 100,000 miles, whichever comes first, though isn't transferable onto second owners, so can't benefit residual values that, as you'd expect, are pretty much up to the levels of other mainstream brands in this segment. That only leaves insurance groupings, rated for petrol folk at Group 7 or 8E for the 1.4 100 PS, Groups 12 or 13E for the 1.4 120 PS, or at Group 15E for the 1.4 140 PS variant. Diesel drivers must budget for Group 6E for the 1.3 CDTI 75 PS, 7E for the 1.3 CDTI 95 PS, and 16 or 17E for this 136 PS 1.6 CDTI variant. You could be forgiven for wondering about the point of buying a 5-seat MPV based on a really compact hatchback. After all, why would you buy a small people carrier when you need all the space you can get? This improved second-generation Meriva is very good at answering that question. It isn't quite as pricey as a C-Max or scenic-style Focus-sized MPV, yet offers most of the roominess and versatility you get from cars in that segment. In some ways, indeed, it's even more flexible. I'm talking, of course, of the thing that really marks this car out. Its clever FlexDoors. And they do certainly make family life a bit easier. But there are also other reasons why you might want to stick this car on your shopping list. The durable supportive seats, optional FlexFix bike carrier and IntelliLink infotainment system are all buying incentives. For me though, the chief one, if your budget will stretch to it, is the 1.6 litre CDTI diesel engine I've been trying here. It's the best diesel in this segment and when installed makes this one of the few really small MPVs properly suitable for regular longer distance trips. I mentioned budget. With some variants, pricing is a little on the high side, especially if you're looking at a diesel. But get the right deal, and providing you're not looking for sterling petrol economy or the kind of dynamic handling really irrelevant to most buyers in this segment, there's little else not to like about this car. It offers little touches that you'll miss when you have to do without them, not least its double opening party piece. Without doubt, this Vauxhall scores on the doors.